Hereditary is directed by Ari Aster. This is his first movie, and this stars Toni Collette as Annie Graham. She's just lost her mother recently. The funerals happened. She's dealing with that loss. She has a family of two children, a young daughter and her elder son, and a husband. They live in this isolated house in the middle of a forest, and life is quiet for them, although her family past, Annie's, is mired in tragedy. Something's been wrong with their entire family tree ever since it started. For generations now, it has been like this. And she has a hobby of making miniatures which depict certain life events, the way she grew up, and certain other things that have existed in her life, like a sort of orderly, systematic way of making things run. And that's all I'm gonna tell you, really. I want to keep it as vague as possible so that if you've not seen the movie, you go check it out. I didn't really know what to expect from Hereditary. Part of me was expecting a horror movie that would scare me a lot and that I would probably have a lot of fun watching, and then I would move on to some other movies that are coming out sooner or later. However, I was surprised with a few things that Hereditary did, and it's a very strange review, what you're about to see, because even while we speak, even while I'm doing this, I have no idea how to process this movie in its entirety. I'm still thinking about it. I saw it 3 days ago, and I can't get it out of my head. It's one of those films that I think is just going to stick with me for a long time. Oftentimes I ask myself in horror movies, what makes it a good one? Is it the supernatural stuff? Is it the scary stuff that just appears out of nowhere? Or is it some of the more thematic elements? With a movie like Hereditary, while there are supernatural elements to it that definitely add to the story while creating context with the family tragedy and what they're all going through, the family tragedy is essentially the main core of this movie. It's what makes this movie have any sort of steam whatsoever. Because even if you remove the supernatural elements from it, and this is something the director has also said, you still are left with this very sad movie about a family who has been through a lot and they're still going through it. It's still not over for them. Toni Collette is having to live through these ordeals day after day after day. Her performance in this movie, it just cannot go without notice. This is outstanding work. She can go from being someone who is within their limits, trying to do their best to keep the grief together, and then just exploding in this one scene in particular. It just happens, and it's one of the most jarring scenes of the movie because you realize she just can't keep this in anymore. She's going to finally just unleash and explode over all of this that's happening. And that was something that was really striking to me. It's the one thing that makes you ground the film in reality more than anything else. While, yes, that supernatural element to the film is lingering over it, and part of the audience watching it will definitely say, hey, it's supernatural, that's probably not gonna happen. At the same time, all of this family stuff grounds it so well that once the supernatural stuff really starts to come into play, it doesn't really have, too much of a jarring effect on the rest of the movie experience. It adds up perfectly to what we're seeing prior to the more horror elemental stuff coming into focus. But like I said, horror movies aren't always about what just come at you from the screen. It's about something that sinks in. It's about how it creeps in on you, and Hereditary definitely does that. It's a scary movie, and it's been called one of the scariest movies of the decade for a reason. It's because this film creeps up on you. Even if it doesn't scare you at first, a few days maybe will go by and you'll keep thinking about it. There are times where you'll be walking around a hallway and you'll be thinking to yourself, I can't walk around this hallway normally right now. Something just feels off. There are so many elements about this film that make it like that. And that's something to be commended. And this is Ari Aster's first movie. I can't wait to see what he's going to do next. One of the things he uses here brilliantly throughout the film is the soundtrack. This thing is haunting. I'm not going to give anything away if I try to refer you to the track I want you to listen to, but even if you see the movie, even if you don't see the movie, whatever you end up doing, there's a track on YouTube. If you look up Hereditary soundtrack, the first link, that should be it. I don't want to say the name of the track just in case that's a spoiler, but that track, I can't get it out of my head. Even while I'm filming this review right now, it's playing in my head like this haunting percussion, and it's it's one of those things. It'll just stick with me for a very long time. There are images in this movie that I will remember probably for the rest of my life. And once you see certain things that are represented in this movie, you'll never unsee them. And for some people, this might be the part of the movie where things might be a little goofy, it might be too predictable or too silly. But art is subjective, horror is subjective, and that's something I've learned a lot while doing reviews on this channel. Not everybody is going to have the same opinion or the same reaction to what you're having. What you think might be an amazing thing will probably be a piece of shit to somebody else, and that's fine. For example, I thought Mother was a fantastic movie, but I know a lot of people who thought Mother was one of the worst movies of 2017, and that's exactly what I'm getting at here. There are people who are going to think Hereditary is a horror masterpiece, but I know people who are going to think that Hereditary just didn't work for them, and it was a movie full of schlock. Just horror schlock dumped in. There are things in here which you may have seen in other horror movies before, but one of the things I've learned while I've been watching a lot of movies recently is that a lot of times, sometimes you'll see things where the ideas are presented in the movie, maybe something you've seen before. What makes it unique from the other thing, for example, Inside Out is a movie that's not entirely unique because there are aspects of it that have been done before, but the way Inside Out did it is what made it so unique. Similarly, Hereditary has things in it which, if you've seen other movies like The Witch, you might think, oh, that is a bit familiar, but it does it in a way that makes it unique, that makes it its own experience. And that's exactly what I would like to term Hereditary as, an experience. It's not exactly a movie that you just walk out of and forget for the rest of the day. It's a movie that sticks with you and it shakes you to your core. Like I said, Toni Collette is Oscar worthy in this movie. She's so good here, but there are other standouts as well. Alex Wolff, for instance, is really good in this movie. The young girl I thought was very creepy and very unsettling at points. There are a few scenes with her which are just unnerving. And from the opening few moments, Aster just puts you into that phase of just being feeling strange. Just feeling like not everything is just quite as perfect as it needs to be or quite as right as it needs to be. And as the film just goes and just builds and builds, things get worse and worse. This is a slow burn movie. Some people are going to have an issue with that, of course. Not everyone likes slow pace, and that's fine. That's something I've learned again quite a bit. If you are somebody who likes a slow pace, though, as it constantly builds to this massive conclusion, then you're going to love what Aster has done here. This film just blew me away with some of its elemental core surprises, and it was amazing. It's a beautifully shot movie with some excellent direction, fantastic writing, brilliant performances. That soundtrack it's just phenomenal. It's haunting, but it's the kind of soundtrack you kind of want to hear again after you're done with it. It's that kind of haunting. It's almost like a beautiful haunting. I don't know, that sounds like a weird thing to say, but it is a lot like that. I'm still processing this movie as we're talking right now. That's why it seems like I'm repeating a lot of things and not quite being able to stay 100% focused. Is because I am still thinking about this movie. I've seen it a bit late. I know a lot of critics have already talked about this film. Pretty much every critic in the world has reviewed this movie by now. But it just sticks with you in this absolutely bizarre way. And if you've not seen it, if you are somebody who is looking for very original, fantastic cinema, I highly recommend seeing it. There's no major issue I have with the film. My only minor gripe would be it sometimes is a bit too slow for its own good, but really, aside from that, I have no other such issues with it, and I'm happy to give it the grade that I want to give it, especially after 3 days of very thoughtful consideration. I'm gonna give Hereditary a 10 out of 10. I didn't add any music after I gave that grade for a reason. It just doesn't feel right, and once you see the film, you'll understand why. Guys, thank you so much as always for watching. If you have seen Hereditary, what are your thoughts on it? Leave it in the comments below. Let me know. If you haven't, I highly suggest checking it out. As always, if you like this, please do subscribe, and I'll see you guys at the movies.